can we take a moment and laugh at her little monitor since the HP Omen died? I do want to show you guys this SN30 Pro controller, not to be confused with the regular SN30 controller, which does not feature your twin analog sticks and your extra bumpers on top. The SN30 Pro controller that just released. This thing took me back, and if I can be a nerd with you for just a minute, I'm gonna tell you, when I opened this and when it came in the box, and kudos to the whole packaging was amazing, but when it came in the box and you turn it to the side and you can see pretty much the top, bottom, and front of the controller on the box, and you slide it open and you look at it, I just had a nerd moment where I was looking at it. The old US SNES controller brought up to a modern day standards that met every mark as far as just what I wanted in a controller that was going to be a retrofit design controller made for someone like me. I grew up on the SNES, and I just had a total nerd moment where I looked at it and I was like, I don't even want to take it out of the box. I feel like it looked so good presentation wise. Of course I did. I'm not going to leave something like this in a box. And for about 40 bucks, it's an amazing controller, and I'm super happy with it. I told you guys I'd look at some more 8-bit stuff. So primarily they market this one to be more for the Switch, a good Switch implementation. So if you wanted to get this and use it with the Nintendo Switch, it was a great option for somebody who wanted something a little more retro to fit with the Switch. We'll cover how it can do just about anything. It can connect to Mac, Windows, Android, and we've played it on the Shield, we've played it on the PC, we've played it on the Switch, and we've had a great time with all of it. Some of the downside issues are most of the Android games, like my NBA Jam, for instance, it's just a matter of how they've mapped it to map with a generic controller that doesn't map so well with this controller, but that's not this controller's fault. It's the fact that in NBA Jam, I can't remap buttons to make it more of that old school SNES feel. However, on things like the Nintendo Switch, everything was on point. It was a great experience. There's motion control inside of this, so if you're used to using that, or the kids want to play and they use little motion control, your tilt and motion control are absolutely perfect. It's 100% one of the best little controllers I've held for that. Something I do have a problem with, which we'll talk about too, I understand that they kind of had limited space to work with in order to maintain the retro feel to the controller, is these top bumper buttons where you have your R1 and your R2. The R1 is just kind of hard to reach and can be a little bit of a pain to kind of control that. I do like it better than their in-series ones where they had the top bumpers next to each other. I think that this is a much better option. It's just really difficult to implement, and it shows that it was sort of difficult to implement. But given the space, size of the controller, all of that, I think that it was really well done on this controller and perfect. Pairing the controller is pretty simple. There's a pair button up here. There's also different methods to pair it on the fly. And in case you're wondering, there's a little quick launch guide on the back here that'll sort of help you out too. Everything about the controller has been great. I love the way the buttons feel. They feel just like the SNES controller to me. Of course, when you try to pick up an older SNES controller, they're a lot more worn out, but this reminds me of getting a new SNES controller for the SNES a long time ago, and the buttons are just on point. From the dips and the X and the Y to the way that the A and the B feel, everything is great. And of course, it's based on the US standard SNES controller, so we've got the purple color scheme. The Japanese release, of course, had the different colors, red, green, blue, and yellow. The analog sticks are great, super smooth, easy to control, and your R3 and L3 buttons to press and actuate perfectly. Everything is just so on point with this. I absolutely love this controller, and I would recommend it in a heartbeat. Mainly geared towards Switch players, but you know, it's awesome. So one of the cool things about it too is that you can map your turbo button. You can hold that button, hit start, it'll blink to indicate that you've mapped that to be a turbo button. One downside to that though is there's not any Switch compatibility with that. It does not work that way on the Switch. It'll work that way for the Android, we play it on the Shield, and it works that way for the PCs. On the bottom you have 4 indicator lights. These are primarily for letting you know what player you are. Inside the actual controller itself, we're looking at a 480 milliamp hour battery, which is pretty cool because it's give or take about 16 hours of play, and it only takes a little bit of time to charge it, somewhere between 30 minutes to about an hour, and you're looking at a pretty full charge. Speaking of charging it, it comes with a USB Type A to USB Type C cable. USB-C everything is something I wholeheartedly believe in. I wish there was a lot more USB-C on just about everything out there. Get with the times everybody else 8-bit did, and it's great. I love USB-C. So let's take a quick second and listen to how some of these buttons sound. So real quick, we're gonna take a listen to this too. That sound you heard is the problem, the major flaw that came with this controller that just almost totally ruined the whole experience for me. This is something that people have complained about, that 8-Bit has since fixed and should now be okay. Quality Assurance must have missed this one, but they were quick to offer a fix in a very simple firmware application with even an instructional video. So what the problem is the rumble is rumbling and it sounds god awful. It sounds terrible. It's a little bit of a violent rumble and it sounds like the controller's shaking apart in your hand. It shouldn't sound like that, but with a quick firmware fix that took less than 5 minutes, it now sounds like... which, as you can tell, you can't hear anything at all. The downside is it kind of brings that rumble down to just a subtle rumble to let you know that something's going on, but it doesn't quite vibrate maybe to the fullest extent that I would want it to. However, this is their fix to that problem. It's probably better that it's more of a subtle rumble than that awful sound that almost completely ruined this controller. I know that there's probably a little bit I didn't cover that some people may be interested in. Be sure and ask if you have any questions. I love this controller and I'd be glad to try to look at something to give you an answer if I can. So here's the part where I'm in post-production and I remembered I forgot to say have a great day, night, whatever it is. Make sure to like it if you like it, dislike it if you didn't. If you have any questions, post them down below. Be sure and follow me on Twitter. Have a great day, night, whatever it is.